Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we're going to be diving back into the Eldari, and we're going to be talking about the ways in which we can mitigate the nerfs in the upcoming balanced data slate. So as you guys know, we are going to be unfortunately nerfed. I mean, it's basically a guarantee. We essentially got to the, you know, finals of the World Championships of Warhammer. We have won the most events out of any other faction in competitive play in, big GTs and so forth, and we have a solid win rate. Now, the Eldari are a very niche faction. They're a very tough faction to play. Really, only expert players can field them and win GTs with them. Having said that, a lot of competitive players are using Eldari and winning with them. So that means we are going to see some nerfs. Now, there's one or two things that can basically happen with the Eldari when it comes to nerfs, and that is A, a points nerf, or B, a rules nerf. Now, as far as points nerfs, I foresee either some of the aspects getting slightly increased or a combination of the aspects and Phoenix Lords getting slightly increased. Not by too much, because if you look at some of the other characters of other factions that are around the same points cost as Phoenix Lords, there's a lot of comparability there. I know people like to say things like, Fuegan's super OP and everything, or Lycus is super OP, but if you actually compare them datasheet to datasheet, there's a lot of trade-offs there, right? Like, for example, you look at a character like, I guess we can call in, I can't remember the Black Templar guy's name, but the Black Templar chapter master, or whatever he's called. Again, Helbricht, that's his name, right? Helbricht. If you look at him, he's 120 points, and he has some insane abilities as well. He's a very strong character. You look at other characters from other factions, Space Marine factions, or, Xenos factions, around 120 points, and you basically get something really comparable, right? Really strong, really good. That's just how the edition has gone. Special characters seem to just be strong, right? Because they have really good abilities that are unique, but usually they're, above 100 points or around 100 points, sometimes higher. The Phoenix Lords are pretty expensive. So I don't see the rules changing. I see maybe the points getting tweaked a tiny bit, or the aspect warriors that they accompany, their points getting tweaked slightly. Or B, the rules get changed. Now, what I do see changing specifically is aspect host and war host in some manner. I don't think the inherent speed bonuses or the rerolls from aspect host and war host are going to be targeted, right? Because that's what makes them unique. A lot of other factions, guess what, guys, have reroll abilities, reroll ones to hit, reroll ones to wound. We've seen this throughout the game. We also have seen, some factions with bonuses to their speed, getting assault on their weapons so that they can advance and shoot, or, advance and charge strats, right? Stuff like that. So we've seen factions with more speed in their detachment rule. So I don't think those are going to get hit. I know some players might argue that they might get hit. Again, I don't think they're that big of a deal, right? Warhost getting an extra, battle focus token and a little bit of extra movement on their battle focus abilities, not that big of a deal. Eldar are about speed after all. Aspect host getting some rerolls on their aspect warriors, not a big deal. It is an aspect focused detachment that's based on damage. What I do see getting hit, however, is potentially, I hope it doesn't, but potentially the ability of Eldar units to get out of transports and get back in really easily and safely. So I could see a nerf to Skyborn Sanctuary in one or two ways. Either it gets increased in CP cost because it is a very strong stratagem, or it gets decreased in the range in which it can re-embark, right? So instead of 6 inches, it's 3 inches. Now, personally, I think what GW will do is if they do target it, they will just increase the CP cost. And this will require aspect host armies to also bring Eldrad to make sure you have enough CP to get back into a transport. It will also prevent people in aspect host from bringing multiple vehicles and using Skyborn Sanctuary both in your own turn and in the opponent's turn, because that's just going to be too much CP to use. In Warhost, it's just going to be, again, a tax on your CP because you have a lot of other stratagems that are really good, and you're just not going to be able to use everything in a single turn. So I honestly think that if the GW Paladins team is having, conversations around this, that they will just target the CP of the stratagem and not necessarily the embarkation range, for example. Because after all, being able to get out 3 inches, shoot and then get back in, but have to be within 3 is a little bit constraining for a lot of the very short-ranged Eldari units that can actually get out of a transport. Again, besides Dark Reapers, Fire Dragons and, Dire Avengers or whatever only have an 18-inch range. Most of them, right? I mean, of course, the Exarchs and, maybe Azurman or Fuegan have a higher range, but for the most part, it's 18 inches, right? So I don't think GW is going to target that. I think mainly they're going to target the CP cost, and I do think this will change how we build our lists slightly. I don't think it'll be as easy for players to just, wantingly do it every single turn, rinse and repeat. There's going to be some trade-offs, right? So, I do think that's a thing. Also, keep in mind that even though Aspect Host, the primary, stratagems of that detachment are Skyborn Sanctuary and Preternatural Precision, where you can choose, sustained hits, lethal hits, or ignores cover on a squad, Warrior's Focus is also a very strong stratagem against certain opponents. So not being able to do all 3 of those things in a single turn is, more or less going to change the way we play, and we're going to have to manage our CP a little better, or we're going to have to pay the Eldrad tax. Now, Eldrad, of course, is good in a lot of ways, but he's not, something that we really want to invest a lot of points into in Aspect Host. In Warhost, he's obviously used because there's a lot more stratagems in that detachment that can be useful. Okay, so we have the 2 problems kind of laid out before us. Now, in front of you, we have the list that I've been running for the last couple months. This is the Aspect Host list. So we have here a pretty basic, I would say a basic Aspect Host list. And honestly, there's nothing like too unique about this. One of the only differences is I run Storm Guardians because I love Storm Guardians. I love Sticky. I love being able to screen the backfield easily and not have to worry about things deep striking my backfield or going from reserve. And that allows the rest of my Aspect Warriors to play really forward. Having said that, I do have 3 units of Dark Reapers who can also kind of screen out a little bit as well. So in my local area, in the games that I play, it's really, really useful to have a lot of stuff that can screen your backfield effectively. Anyway, so that's why I have Storm Guardians. I love them. Now, what else do I have in my list? Well, as you can see, I got the Fire Dragon boat. A lot of players are kind of complaining about that outside of Eldari, thinking that the Dragon boat is going to go up insane amount of points. I honestly don't think that's going to be the case. At most, I see it going up another 20 points maybe. 10 points for Fuegan, maybe 10 more points for Fire Dragons, That's about it. I really don't see them getting brought up that much. And the reason for this is because the Dragon boat is really good against very elite targets, right? Vehicles, monsters, or really expensive elite infantry just because of the nature of Meltaguns. But they're not necessarily, at their core better than, any other like hardcore anti-tank unit in the game, right? This is like a 400 point unit. So, you compare this to maybe, triple Gladiator Lancer, right? I know it's a triple Gladiator Lancer, by the way, is 480 points, which may seem like a ton of points, but this is exactly what this is, right, guys? Like this combo right here is a ton of points. This is like 460 or something like that, right? So triple Lancer compared to this, I mean, they're very comparable, right? Anyway, going off topic a little bit there, but I don't think they really should target this unit. We also have a squad of 3 Shining Spears. Now, Shining Spears for me, I think The problem is they personally don't do anything for me oftentimes, but I like them, so they're in the list. We could easily swap them out for a Warp Spider unit. We have Banshees, 3 squads of Dark Reapers with missile launchers, Rangers, 2 squads of Void Scarred, 3 squads of Swoops, 2 squads of Warp Spiders, 1 with the Autarch Wayleaper and 1 with Lycus. That's the list. Now, let's say the GW decides to nerf the points of our army. Let's say they decide to bring, for example, Warp Spiders up to 100 and Swooping Hawks up to 90. And they kind of maybe leave it at that, right? So that would be considered a light nerf. And we'll go into some of the heavier nerfs and what we can do for those. Now, this particular army that I have here is around 2,000 points. I think it's at 1990. So what we can do is we can kind of just eat the Warp Spider nerfs if we can. We can just eat those nerfs right up. We don't care about that. But we do have to free up 15 points in our list, right? So that can be a little bit of an issue. But, right, if we take an 85 point, or what was an 85 point unit here of Swooping Hawks, we can actually trade those out for something 15 points less. So a 70 point unit. We can put in another squad of Void Reavers if we want to. We can also, and this won't be exactly 1-for-1, but if we need to get some, kind of extra firepower here, we can always look to Dire Avengers. It only costs 75 points for a squad of 5. I know that Dire Avengers aren't that great, but if you really just need something in reserve that can, kind of take out some light infantry or go in the opponent's backfield, that can work for you. Also, if Swooping Hawks go up, we have the Autarch Wayleaper. So I want to talk about the Autarch Wayleaper. We can always get rid of an Autarch Wayleaper, or excuse me, we can get rid of a Swooping Hawk squad or an Autarch Wayleaper. Now let me explain what the Autarch Wayleaper does in comparison with the Swooping Hawks. So let's bring the Swooping Hawks here for a second side by side. So obviously in terms of damage and utility and stuff, the Swooping Hawks are going to be just better. It's just better to have a whole unit of something versus just a single character. However, I think the Swooping Hawks, although good, can be swapped out for an Autarch Wayleaper in this one circumstance. So basically, if you have 3 squads of swoops like I'm running, you usually run 1 unit in Deep Strike. And this is basically just because you may not actually have enough room on the board to deploy all 3 units safely. And you want to be able to use them for kind of, grabbing objectives or scoring secondaries or anything kind of like that, right? Or just maybe just making it harder for your opponent to make decisions about stuff. Maybe they have to screen out stuff in their backfield, so they leave a couple units back for the Swooping Hawks, and the Swooping Hawks accumulate value through doing that, right? They can also rapid ingress, which can give them a better position on the battlefield. Okay, in comes the Autarch Wayleaper, man. So the Autarch Wayleaper, actually, a channel member gave me this idea a while back. I started thinking about it more and more. Dead of Night, shout out to him, because he runs a crazy amount of Wayleapers in his list. Now, I'm not saying you should run 3 of them, but I think running 1 of them in exchange for a Swooping Hawk squad and saving 10 points, because I don't think this guy's getting nerfed, to be honest. This guy's probably going to still remain at 80 points. I think at 80 points, he's kind of a steal. So this is what he does. He still has Deep Strike, right? So he can still Deep Strike in. Now, as far as his movement goes, he is a little bit faster than Warp Spiders in that he has movement 14 instead of 12. Now, I know Warp Spiders can flicker jump 24, but on his own, he just has that base 14 movement. Now, what you can do with this guy as well is you can have him in reserve to Deep Strike. You can rapid ingress him if you need to score something. You can, mess up your opponent's plans with if they have Display of Might, if they draw a Display of Might as a secondary objective, you can throw the Autarch Wayleaper in there and force your opponent to expend more resources trying to get to the middle. Or in some cases, if your opponent's a really good planner, you might just completely throw them off with this, right? Or you can deep strike him in places that you couldn't normally fit a swooping hawk unit. So, obviously swooping hawks are on 32 mils, just like the Autarch Wayleaper. They're on the same base size. Swooping hawks take up more space. Your opponent might be able to screen out a squad of 5 swooping hawks in the backfield. It's going to be extremely difficult to totally screen out an Autarch Wayleaper. So, oftentimes what will happen is your opponent, turn 3, will leave a little tiny spot open that they don't really see, or that they, just kind of have there and that they can't screen it properly, right? Again, Aspect Host is very aggressive, and so is Warhost. So all of your resources are being put in, they're doing their work on turns 2, typically turns 3, and your opponent's going to have to respond. This guy can sneak up and just like kind of come in and sit there and score you points, right? He can score you an easy behind enemy lines if you do draw that. He can score you a pretty decent established locus, right? If you do draw that, you can establish locus in the enemy backfield, which is really nice, right? And he can hide very easily. The other good thing about him, I should say, or her, depending on how you build it, right, is that he gets a free strat. So he can throw a free grenade, which is really useful. He can heroically intervene for free, which is kind of nice. Or you can use him as an assassin, right? He actually has the melee damage to kill a lot of characters in the game. So if your opponent's not careful, he can come in and charge an enemy unit, and obviously he's going to be a suicide, right? But you can do a free epic challenge and you can kill an enemy character, potentially, right? It's not always going to work out like that, but potentially you can. Or he can come in with, Dragon Fusion Gun against a light vehicle or something in the back. A lot of Marine players like to take the, little RV thing in their backfield. I can't remember what it's called exactly, but I think it's called the Outrider or whatever. Little, guys, that little truck thing. You can come back there, shoot it. It has toughness 8. You just kill it pretty easily, right? If you need to re-roll something, you can always do the free command re-roll with his free strat that he gets, and you can pretty easily kill that thing, or at least do enough damage to it where it's dead. So you can also do that, right? You will have to wait a turn, essentially, to do that, but you can, then come out, shoot it, throw a grenade at it, charge it, kill it. You can get an easy kill against it. So there's a lot of things that this guy can do that swooping hawks can't really do that effectively because they're just kind of a bigger unit. They have a bigger footprint. They're a little harder to hide and so forth. So putting an Autarch Wayleaper in your list just for that reserve play can be very useful. This guy can be very tricky. If you're playing in Warhost, you can give him the Phoenix Gem. Now, word to the wise on the Phoenix Gem. The Phoenix Gem is really expensive, right? It's like 30 points, which sucks. However, having said that, it does make it so that your opponent has to kill him twice. So if you want to make plays in the backfield and your opponent doesn't have a unit that can double activate, which basically essentially means shoot and then charge and kill in one turn, then he gets double time, right? So he can do another objective, for example, or he can, kind of kill something else, right? There's a lot of things he can do, even though he's at an increased cost. So I really like that combo of choosing the Autarch Wayleaper in lists and kind of going that direction. He can be really good. Of course, you can also give him other enhancements, and you could even run him in Guardian Battle Host. I was thinking of something the other day for Guardian Battle Host. You can give him the Champion of the Craft World enhancement, so he has OC5. So all of a sudden you're rapid ingressing on stuff and like stealing objectives away from your opponent. So your opponent's like, oh, I was gonna steal this objective away, but I guess not. And then you can control the objective, earn yourself points. Right? So I think the Autarch Wayleaper, just running him as a solo character, can be very effective and can be a good way to shave some points if you're running normal aspects instead. Of course, if you give him enhancement, you're not really saving any points, but he's good just without enhancements as well, in my opinion. So he's a good little guy to, kind of replace a swooping hawk squad or something like that in your list. Save yourself some points if Swooping Hawks do indeed go up in points. Now, another thing that we talked about is what if they nerf the rules of, Skyborn Sanctuary? Well, we do have Eldrad, right? We could always include Eldrad in Aspect Host if we need to, right? If the CP of Skyborn Sanctuary goes up, we can put Eldrad in here. And guess what? I have a squad of Shining Spears on my list. Let's just get rid of those, right? We don't really need Shining Spears. We can just put Eldrad in there, and he's just going to be the Storm Guardians, right? Which basically means that he's going to be able to impact the battlefield. He's going to be able to, get more command points for you. He can cast Doom. He can help the lethality of your army still, which kind of makes up for not having another unit of Shining Spears in your list, right? Or another unit of Warp Spiders or whatever. So there's things we can do if they nerf the rules. There's things we can do if they nerf the points. So I honestly don't think Aspect Host and War Host are going to be like quote unquote dead in the water if we do get nerfed. Now, one thing I do think, and this has been on my mind as well, what if they just totally trash can, Fuegan and Fire Dragons? Like, what if they do something really crazy, increase their points by like 40 or 50, so they become like over 500 points total for the package, and then they also nerf Skyborn Sanctuary. So we're seeing like insane changes, or perhaps they even target the Fuegan special rule. Maybe they, instead of giving him a bonus 6 inches on the Burning Lance ability, they give him like 3 extra inches or something crappy like that, to where it's not even really worth using this unit anymore coming out of a Wave Serpent. Well, we have a couple of options there as well. Assman and Dire Avengers are still very good at killing infantry, especially heavy infantry. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Proxy Hammer, what are you talking about? They're not that good at killing heavy infantry. Well, a Zerman kills 3 wound models extremely easily, especially in Aspect Host. And these guys with lethal hits in Aspect Host are actually really good at destroying big targets. And if we combo that with Eldrad, again, remember what I said earlier, right? If they do that double combo thing, we can sub in Eldrad somewhere in this list, right? Maybe get rid of these guys. And then instead of the Fire Dragons, again, you guys are going to think I'm crazy for this, but if they nerf them that bad, we might have to. And we can sub in some Dire Avengers. Okay. Now, this allows us to still be able to kill heavy infantry fairly easily. We have Eldrad. That +1 to wound actually makes it so that Assman and the Dire Avengers with lethal hits, sustained hits, and, aspect tokens and stuff can actually punch up against vehicles too. And we do have the Autarch Wayleaper, we do have Dark Reapers, right? We do have other ways of killing monsters. So we're not completely dead in the water here. Having said that, I do think that would be, against really heavy armor skew lists, I think we would just kind of be at a huge disadvantage over the course of the game. But we do have things that can crack big stuff. So it looks like what's happening now is the meta is shifting a little bit towards, really elite infantry. We're seeing Victrix Honor Guard, which, guys, who would have thought? Who would have thought the new OP, Ultramarines unit would be dominating tournaments? Well, it is. Right? Now, what's good against Victrix Honor Guard? Units that can constantly damage them, because they're going to be using that reactive move like it's candy, right? They're going to be moving out onto an objective, baiting you in, saying, hey, if you charge me, I'm just going to get out of charge range, and I'm just going to dominate you, right? Well, Eldar don't really play that game. We can just kind of come out, shoot them in the face for free, get back in our Wave Serpent, get back behind cover, and just pretend like nothing happened, right? If they want to kind of, move and advance and charge us, then we have ways of dealing with them at that point. They have committed their 400-point unit at that point. Maybe they kill like 100 points worth of infantry, right? If we screen them out properly, they're going to kill like Warp Spiders and Lycus maybe, and then we're just going to wipe the rest of them out. They're not going to be able to stand a chance, right? So we played that game extremely well. So Azurman and Dire Avengers can either just, kill 3 or 4 of them a turn, which they don't really quite kill 4 actually. a little bit of a lie. They kill about 3 when you factor in Eldrad and lethal hits and stuff. Remember, because they're rerolling 1s. Lycus is giving them crits on 5s with that stratagem that they can use. They're going to be able to really hit hard against those types of units. And even harder against Blade Guard, right? If your opponent wants to use something like Blade Guard, it's just going to be way better, right? Because Zerman can pop his mini feet with dev wounds, and he can kill models like no other, especially with aspect tokens. So I honestly think that aspect host and war host are still potentially going to be the strongest detachments. We're going to have to see, but I think they're probably going to be still pretty dominant here for the most part. Even if they do get nerfed in several ways, I think they're going to be what's used the most in Eldari play. Now, having said that, if you want to completely swap your army out to like Guardian Battle Host or Seer Council, I think those builds are going to be very, very effective. After the changes, we're going to have to like kind of wait and see, but they're probably going to be pretty good. I really like Guardian Battle Host. I think it's a really good detachment. Really strong if you learn how to play it. Seer Council is my favorite detachment to play. Is it the most competitive? I think it's the best, but I have a bias towards it. Obviously, it's been kind of shown that Aspect Host and War Host are a little bit more flexible into different types of armies than Seer Council is, but I do think Seer Council might have the better counter matchups, if that makes sense. So, yeah, in general, I do think Aspect Host and War Host are still going to be kind of the go-to for most Eldari players, even if they get nerfed pretty hard. Now, I want to show you guys something on the tabletop really quick. Just a quick thing. Nothing too fancy here, but wanted to show you what Dire Avengers against a squad like this it can do in combination with Lycus. So a lot of people are talking about Vitrix Honor Guard being like just absolutely impossible to deal with and just super OP and everything like that. We actually don't even need the Wave Serpent for this combo to work. So obviously we can either have the Wave Serpent there with Fire Dragons, or we can just have Dire Avengers. I personally don't think Dire Avengers really need a Wave Serpent to operate because they just move 6 inches after they shoot. So we're going to just put the Wave Serpent here just because. I know it's not in the proper place, but there we go. And we are going to do this. Now, the first thing we're going to do, we are going to move our Warp Spiders up into position. So we're going to go like this. We're going to jump with these Warp Spiders. We're going to jump wait, let me put the measurement on them real quick, just so I can show you guys what we can do. So, of course, we can ignore Overwatch. And we can jump our 24 inches over here. Now, this is not quite here, so what's going to happen is we're going to actually have to deploy them here. 1 second. This is, by the way, like kind of like a first or second turn type deal where you have these guys in here. So we're going to go, well, just put Lycus right there. And of course, the Wave Serpent is probably back here. Let's put the Dire Avengers closer. Wave Serpent always needs to get into a position, so usually what I do is I just move the Wave Serpent behind this wall right here. But anyway, maybe that has Fire Dragons in it. We're going to move these guys forward. Gosh, I'm sorry for the lag. We're going to move these guys actually after there. Okay. That's fine. They're behind there. Okay, so this is what we do. This is the combo. We ignore Overwatch, we move up. Right, so like this is 21 inches right here, so we can go up to 24 pretty safely. So it's safe to assume we can kind of go anywhere around here. As you guys can see, it's not really a big deal here, so don't blast me on movement in the comments. So here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna kind of shimmy around them like this, and what I'm doing will become very apparent in just a second. I'll do all the measurements and stuff in a sec. That should be about 2 inches apart from everybody here. Let's find out. Okay. 1.7, 1.9. Okay, yeah, we have movement to spare. So if we wanted to like even go further with this, we could, right? We could spread them out like even more. Let's actually do that. Let's do this. Maybe something like that. Oh, that's a little too much, but that's okay. 0.1. Again, we have to stay outside of 1 inch of these guys. 1.4, 1.4, 7. All right, let's move that guy a little bit. 2.2. Okay, I think that's perfect. Anyway, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you get the idea. They can kind of go like this. So now, if you guys don't know, let's pretend these are, I know these are Blade Guard, but let's pretend these are Victrix Honor Guard. So basically what's going to happen is they're going to get the chance to move 6 inches. Now, again, this unit is going to probably get nerfed pretty quick in this next Balanced Data Slate, but GW has already sold so many Honor Guard units, I don't think they give a fuck. I honestly think they just tried to burn Space Marine players on this one. People went out and bought like 18 of them. I salute you, Space Marine players, because they're starting to like, you know, dominate all these tournaments, and we're going to probably see them get probably nerfed. So, sayonara, buddies. Anyway, cool models. I think they are kind of cool models, but here we go. So, we moved like this. Now, they have the option of moving, right? However, they can't really do much, can they? Right? Like, I may be wrong here, and correct me if on in the comments if I'm wrong here, but I don't think they can actually move 6 inches into combat with you if you move here. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure they can. I'm gonna just say it. I've read the rule kind of. I read it a couple of days ago. Didn't think of it when I read it, so it probably can't happen, right? Okay. Anyway, now I'm starting to fear. You know, what if they can engage me? But I doubt it. Okay, so they're there now. They can choose to move, but really the only place they can move now is like this way, right? They can move this way if they want to. Let me just put. They can move 6 inches this way onto the objective, but that doesn't really do them any good, does it? Because if they move onto the objective, everything's going to draw line of sight to them in my army, right? All my Dark Reapers, all my, you know, Dire Avengers, perhaps my Fire Dragons, all of them are going to be able to see them, and they're just going to get blasted to shit. So, are they going to do this? Probably not. However, they don't really have a fucking choice of doing anything because they can't move now. I've surrounded them on 3 sides. So the only directions they can move is forward and over here, which also doesn't really do much for them. Now, they might decide to go over here and still like kind of pluck on the objective. They might like tow the objective here or something. But that's about it, right? They can't really do anything else. So if they do this, that's fine. Right? They're negating a little bit of firepower from the warp spiders, but there's a reason we put Lycus right here. And it's simply that she can shoot them, and once she shoots them, they're going to be crit on 5s. Now, something you do have to keep in mind, though, is that Victrix Honor Guard do have a surge move as well. So they do have the, 6-inch tactical move, or, reactive move, if you will. It's usually D6, but if they're in tactical doctrine, I believe it's 6 inches. So what you're going to have to do in this case is you're going to have to make sure you don't kill a Victrix Honor Guard model. Now, Lycus alone usually doesn't kill one. She's AP -2, ignores cover, but it's very rare that she's going to actually cause that many wounds. So the rest of the warp spiders here should be just shooting at something else if they can. But of course, if the situation calls for it, just don't kill one so that they can't surge into you, and that'll of course end your movement phase or shooting phase, I should say, at them, because they'll be engaged at that point. So just be careful of that. Other than that, though, should be a pretty easy setup here. So then we just from there move our Dire Avengers up. Now Dire Avengers are very fast. They can move 7 inches We can give them a +2 if we want to. So we can move them up to 9 inches, no problem. Right, we can move them up to here if we want to. Again, we're going to rearrange these so we can actually see, get line of sight on everything, and also be within 6 so we can get back over here. So it's going to be more like this. Yeah, just so we can move 6 inches, like, and like be within the terrain, right? These guys measured. For some reason they're not measuring. We could just like move 6. Yeah, that's perfect, right? We can just move within the terrain. So they're going to be something like that. Maybe we have a couple guys more like this. Anyway. So now we can blast them with Dire Avenger Fire. We can, activate lethal hits. We can, do a bunch of damage to them. Now, we probably don't want to charge this unit in, but it's an option, right? Especially with all of these, power weapon attacks we get. I mean, these are already going to die anyway. We might as well hold them up into combat, right? Hold them there for another turn so that we can hopefully, I mean, they're not going to survive, but depending on how many we can kill here, they might survive a turn. So we can bring out these Dire Avengers. We can, if we have other things in Wave Serpents like Dark Reapers, we can bring out them with Mao and Raw perhaps or something like that. But we're just going to blast these, right? With Fire Dragons, whatever we got, we're going to blast them. And they'll probably lose like 4 guys, right? They're not going to lose, they're not going to lose Calgar. They're not going to lose the 2 bodyguards, that he brings with them, but they're going to lose 4 of their basic dudes. And that's just the shooting, right? As you guys can see, that already looks much more manageable. And then we can kind of go after them with Lycus. And what have we really exchanged here, right? We've already kind of killed almost as much points as these Warp Spiders are worth. But then we can like charge in with these guys and we can probably kill another one. If not 2 more, right? We can kill 1 or 2 more with Lycus and the Exarch right here. So then it's just Calgar and his 2 honor guard. So honestly, when I was thinking about how to deal with this unit, I was really kind of thinking to myself, like, I don't know if this unit is going to be that good, that effective against, units like this, even with the -1 to wound, right? Like Fire Dragons are rerolling 1s to hit. You can give them sustained hits. You got aspect tokens in there. You got Fuegan. You can, just melt their armor. By the way, they have no invul save, like at all. So they just have that 2-up armor save. And this is the other thing I was talking about earlier, is like, here they have a cover save. If they move out, if they choose to move out, they don't have that cover anymore. So oftentimes I think players will just choose to stay here, but that's also a trap, because then our Warp Spiders can shoot them and force a bunch of 3-up saves on them, because they're only toughness 4. They do have 4 wounds apiece, but they're only toughness 4. So we can kind of eliminate the threat like that. Are we going to kill all of them? No, of course not. But we're going to kill most of the squad and reduce their combat effectiveness considerably. So yeah, that's the thing, right? So I don't know why the Wave Serpent's there. But anyway, that's what we got going on. I mean, I guess you could take Assman with, the Wave Serpent. Okay, so that's what I got for you guys today. Kind of wanted to show you a little bit of a trick you can do with Lycus and Warp Spiders, or honestly, you don't even have to just do it with Lycus. You can do it with just regular Warp Spider squads. Can do the same exact thing. You prevent them from moving back, right? You prevent the Victrix Honor Guard from moving back with a reactive move, and then you can like dump something like Fire Dragons into them and just absolutely bully them. And that also means that, depending on the board state, how close they are to you and stuff, you may even be able to get within melter range, right? I mean, that's something that Fire Dragons can't always do against units like that because of that reactive move. But if you block them from being able to move backwards, then you can really limit their ability to keep out of melter range. Okay, guys, that's all I got for you today. I don't think the nerfs are going to hit us so hard that we just become useless. I know a lot of players are fearing that. I just don't see it happening. Like, I'm thinking to myself all the different ways they could nerf us, and I'm like thinking of ways that we can kind of negate that or mitigate that in ways that we can still, have a strong army. Maybe we're not top 3 in the game anymore, but I still think we can be pretty strong. And we can honestly play a very, very competitive game of Warhammer 40k with pretty much anyone else out there. All right, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching once again. And thank you to all my patrons and supporters who have supported the channel over the last 3 years. Yes, we've been doing this for 3 years, well over 3 years now, and it's been a wild ride. So thank you so much for your support. If you do want to support the channel, I do have a Patreon. I will leave the link in the description. If you do sign up for the Patreon, even if it's a free trial, you will get access to our Discord community, which is a community of Eldar players and enthusiasts who love strategy, tactics, and of course hobbying. So if you want to talk about any of those things, come on down and, we'll have a great time. Lastly, if you want to get some Eldar inspired apparel on my channel store page, or take a look at the Amazon affiliate link for some discounts on Eldar minis, I will leave those links in the description also. Alright guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching once again, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.